My name is Eva Cyzia, and I will present this first part on the Digital-ready Policymaking framework that is a Commission solution. So exactly, we can go to the agenda. You can see what we will be expecting today. Yeah, next slide. So exactly, the framework will be presented and its elements. Then Yuri Robrecht from DG Environment will show an example from his DG, how they get aligned with the procedure. We will share with you some lessons learned, and finally we will go to the Q&A part, where you can listen more about our issues, our challenges, and also maybe you can share your feedback on this matter. And we can go further, just maybe as a recap, why we introduced this digital-ready policymaking framework. Basically, of course, there are other political priorities for the Commission, but most importantly, their Interoperable Europe Act was a biggest trigger to implement this DRPM framework. And why it is so important? This act entered into force last April, but the interoperability assessment has came into force this January, and this is a big obligation also for the Commission, as it falls under the scope of the Interoperable Europe Act, because the Act applies to all union entities and public sector bodies of member states. And under the scope are trans-European digital public services and their systems. So when the Commission also draft their policies, we have to be mindful of this obligation. And going further, I will show you how this framework is implemented in the Commission. So Digital-ready Policymaking framework is a mean to comply with this Interoperable Europe Act. We have several elements along the policymaking cycle. First, already in the planning stage, there is a digital check. Then during this policymaking journey, there is digital-ready guidance. And finally, there is in the consultation, there is legislative, financial, and digital statement or digital statement. And I will tell you what is the difference on my next slides. But the idea is that this framework will lead to quicker adoption of new policy proposals. It leads to smoother digital implementation. And of course, the main goal is to reduce administrative burden. And the framework is, of course, something new. So we see the need for additional support, and there is a digital-ready policymaking support service established. And there is also an oversight by the Interoperability Coordinator, Veronika Gaffey, Director-General for DG Digit, so Digital Services, Directorate-General for Digital Services. And just let's start with the digital check. This is the first. On my next slide, you will see that this is the first point in the policymaking process. When a policy is registered, when there is a policy proposal, there is a mandatory field at the planning stage, and a policy officer has to reply if there are digital dimensions of a policy. So it's simple yes or no question, but it's based on 4 simple questions that a policy officer has to answer. The goal is to find out if a policy proposal has digital aspects. The check applies since January already of this year, and policy officers should contact their local support to fill in this digital check. And those 4 questions that you will see on my next slide, they will help you understand what digital dimensions are, how they can be described in the policy. So a policy officer has to answer, does the policy initiative foresee the collection, processing, generation, exchange, or sharing of data? Does it consider the automation or digitalization of stakeholder processes? Does it foresee the use of new or existing digital solutions? Does it concern digital public services? And if at least one of this question a policy officer answers yes, then digital check in this, let's say, registry is also yes. If there is no to each of these questions, then in this registry, a policy officer has to choose no and provide some justification, because it is possible that there are no digital dimensions, but just to have this additional layer of reflection, a policy officer has to provide some justification. And it is also possible at this stage that there is no digital dimensions if in your policy proposal, but it is possible that later, when a policy is being drafted, then more information are available, then the digital check actually has to be redone, because during drafting this policy, it turns out that actually there are some digital dimensions, so the digital check has to be changed to yes if something changes. And also, on the next slide, you will see that this is not to be done solely by the policy officer. There is a digital-ready policymaking support service, a centralized team in DG Digit, Directorate-General for Digital Services, that provides tailored consultancy, organizes information sessions, produces guidance and other resources, such as detailed guidance on how to conduct this digital check. Also, there is the tailored guidance for different profiles, for policy officers, for IT, and some e-learning courses. But as the team is limited, it's not a big team, there is a strong encouragement for each DG, for each Directorate-General to organize their local DRPM support. And this is very important because these teams, they know the context of their DG. They know the context of their policies, they know IT systems, and then they can provide first-hand information. And the idea is that this local support is composed of IT, data, and procedural experts, so people who know how this policy-making process in their DG is organized, because of course there is a framework for the whole Commission, but each DG has its specificity. And this local support team should be in touch with the DRPM support service that we can further inform on any updates regarding to the framework or any other relevant information. Finally, the Digital-ready Policymaking framework. On my next slide, you'll see that in the consultation phase, with the available support, the policy officer should fill in the legislative, financial, and digital statement, or digital statement. But let me focus on the first one. Legislative, financial, and digital statement, the LFDS, is a template to be filled in by policy officers with, of course, help of local support, and it accompanies policy proposal in the inter-service consultation. And this template is something new that in the internal processes at the Commission had to be a bit aligned with the requirement of digital ready policymaking framework of this interoperability assessment, because there was legislative financial statement before, and that was a document that was accompanying policy proposals along this policymaking cycle. But to include digital dimensions, to this statement, digital dimensions chapter was added, and this statement was extended to the legislative, financial, and digital statement, the LFDS. And this LFDS serves as the interoperability assessment report within the Commission. And it also applies from January 1st. And policy officers, of course, with the help of their local support, should be able to fill in this statement. If during the inter-service consultation some changes are made, so if when the policy is drafted and then it is consulted with other DGs, so for example, the digital, so for example, the Directorate-General for Environment drafted a policy, and then it is consulted with DG Digit, so digital services. Then if Digit proposes some changes, the LFDS has to be updated. And finally, it reaches other institutions along with the policy proposal, so the Parliament and the Council. And finally, it is published on Eurolex. And it provides an overview of digital implications of policy proposals. And the difference is for the implementing and delegated acts, because they do not require legislative financial and digital statement. They require a simplified version of the LFDS, that is a digital statement. The approach is more or less the same. It's just a simplified version of this statement, as we heard from our colleagues that for some type of acts that is not necessary to fill in this long document. And on my next slide, you'll see 5 sections of the LFDS. So the first one, requirements of digital relevance. A policy officer has to list paragraphs, articles of the legislative proposal that involve this digital aspect, that have digital dimensions. Then in data, the policy officer has to think of, have to give the high-level description of data, of information, and also align it with once only principle and the EU data strategy. And in the next section, the digital solutions, there is a need to also provide a high-level description of functionalities that are set out in the legal text, and also provide information of the body responsible for the solution. In the 4th section, there has to be an assessment of on the impact of requirement of cross-border interoperability, so exactly what interoperability assessments require. And finally, describe measures outlining the Commission's role and actors involved in the process outlined in the text. And that is a general overview of the Digital-ready Policymaking framework. On the next slide, you will see already a start at the beginning of the presentation from Yuri Robrecht. As I was saying in the beginning, Yuri is from a policy analyst from DG Environment, and he will tell you more about local support in their DG. I hope that Yuri can. Thank you very much.
Here I am, Eva.
For joining us.
So, thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for changing the slides. So good morning, everyone, and thanks again for the invitation, Eva. Indeed, I'm Yuri Robrecht. I'm a policy officer for digitalization in the Directorate-General for the Environment, where I'm part of the digital team in a unit that is working on strategy, digitalization, better regulation, and economic analysis. So let me take a few minutes of your time to walk you through how digital-ready policymaking, the RPM, is being put into practice in a DG environment. So as of January 1st, as I've already mentioned, the RPM is no longer just a good practice. It's a formal requirement in the policy development cycle across the European Commission. This means that every new legal initiative must include a digital check right at the planning stage, and where applicable, also a digital statement as part of the legal, financial, and digital statement that we have to provide with any legal proposal. This is not optional, it's embedded in the workflow, and it's integrated in the requirements to do an interoperability assessment as well, which is coming from the Interoperable Europe Act. Now, for directives, regulations, and decisions, legal, financial, and digital statement is required. For implementing and delegated acts, only a digital statement is mandatory. So this must include at the same time the interoperability assessment and needs to be discussed during the inter-service consultations with the other Commission services before we can move forward to adoption of a proposal by the College. The final versions of all these LFDSs and digital statements are published on Eurolex next to the legal proposals to bring transparency and accountability. And next slide, please, Eva. Thank you. So at the Commission, we're investing in practical guidance, tailored support, and automation tools to empower the teams that have to do the digital statements and the interoperability assessments. And most of the resources that we are using are being made available by the colleagues from DG Digit at the corporate level. That includes step-by-step documentation for completing a digital check and the LFDS or specifically digital statement for implementing and delegated acts. There's also tailored guidance that is tailored to the capacity of the colleagues, depending on whether you're a policy officer, an IT expert, or a legal advisor. There's also support from Digit on capacity building at the local level to make sure that every unit, every policy unit can confidently manage their digital readiness. And within DG Environment, we have strengthened this capacity building through the establishment of what we call the DG Environment DRPM support hub for policy units. And within the hub, we are leveraging the internal examples to build the institutional knowledge for doing digital-ready policy making. Now, furthermore, and we're hoping that that will be developed soon enough, but Digit is also working on providing us with tooling. So at the corporate level, we have a tool that's called Edit, that has to be used for drafting legal proposals, which also includes already templates for digital readiness and some assistance on drafting when we start off the project of drafting a legal proposal. At the same time, I think they're also looking, and we hope they will come forward with a kind of a solution or something soon enough. They're looking into the artificial intelligence to see how that can be of service to support the policy officers or assist the policy officers in doing digital-ready policy making and doing the interoperability assessments and drafting the digital statement. So a lot of promising things coming our way, and that's the tooling section. Next slide, Eva. So how do we actually concretely implement all of this in DG Environment? As I said, we have the DG Environment, the RPM hub, which is a local structure and a joint effort between a our digital policy team and the IT unit in DG Environment. And we're also working in close collaboration with the Better Regulation team. So it's a truly integrated effort in a multidisciplinary team where policy, legal, and IT teams work together. And the hub is intended to act as a one-stop shop for the policy units that should provide guidance, capacity, and hands-on support to them when drafting new legislation and having to do the digital readiness assessments. So far, we have supported 3 digital statements in legal, financial, and digital statement for a new proposal, and we already did 17 digital checks for new upcoming legislative work. Currently, we operate through a functional mailbox, but in most cases, colleagues directly contact us, and then you get a phone call, you pick it up, and you hear on the other side, we have a problem, and I was told you could help me. So that is kicks off more or less the process of support to the policy units at that point, and we upload all the relevant files. We ask the relevant legal proposals, the initial digital statements that are prepared by the units, and we upload everything in a SharePoint Teams SharePoint collaboration platform. And then next we agree within the hub what capacity could be made available, who could be made available to support the specific policy unit on this specific file. And then all the further progress that we make is again recorded in that Teams SharePoint collaboration platform. So the hub has access to all the past and progressing files at any point in time. Still 2 important things to mention. First, the responsibility for the digital-ready policy making and to do the digital check, digital statements, interoperability assessment lies and it stays with the policy units. So they have to take the initiative to get in touch with us. They have to deliver those files with their legal proposals. And secondly, the hub itself is not just about support, it's also about collaboratively building capacity within these multidisciplinary teams and also creating awareness for digital readiness within the DG. Next slide, please, Eva. So that allows us to move to the digital check. That's an important lesson that we learned from the past, is that when we talk about and think about digital, that we have to start early in the process, because it's very difficult to retrofit digital aspects in a legal proposal later on. So the digital check is embedded directly into the planning phase of any new policy initiative or legal initiative. And policy units share fiches for which, with their proposals for new initiatives with the Better Regulation planning team in DG Environment, and I think in most of the DGs of the Commission. But at this time, when they share these fiches for new initiatives with the Better Regulation team, it's also shared with the ENF Digital-ready Policymaking Hub for validation. So even before policy units contact us for support, we have already a good idea of what's in the pipeline. and how many of the new initiatives will really have will require a digital statement. So we have also adapted the guidance a bit. So Eva mentioned the 4 questions to be asked at the time of the digital check, but we adapted those questions a bit with examples from the environmental policy domains to create a bit more familiar context for our policy officers within DG Environment. And we also look at the digital check as a kind of a gateway to start the local support process. So we get the information through the fishes, it's sent to us, we look at the digital checkpoint and we check with the units what their feeling is about the digital readiness and the digital needs for their legal proposal. So at that point, the support process already starts. And then if a digital check leads to a positive outcome, that means that we think there are digital aspects to the proposal, then that will lead to a deeper assessment of data flows, digital solutions, and cross-border interoperability, even before the legal drafting process will start. That will allow us to look at the possible reuse of common digital building blocks for the policies. That could be a EU ID wallet, it could be a business wallet, digital single gateway. So these kind of things that we can advise units to include in their legal proposals and provisions as a kind of a common digital framework and infrastructure to be used to support the interoperability. But at the same time, it also allows us to look together with the units into the possible inter-institutional service providers that they would require. For example, if we have a new policy file for soil monitoring, air quality, it always includes a bit of reporting as well. At that point, in the past, we used to think about who will support the reporting flows. Will it be the internal IT unit? Will it be the environmental agency with whom we work a lot? Will it be the Joint Research Center of the European Commission that will support us? And these reflections came later in the stage when we had adopted the legal proposal and had to start thinking about how to implement reporting. This is moved forward, that now we say we have digital requirements, there might be some reporting requirements. Let's think up front what the impact will be. What do we need? Do we need the institutional support from other services? Can we do it within our own IT unit? Can we reuse existing systems? So it's a very important, has become a very important phase in the development cycle, also for estimating requirements down the road, and also for the budget impacts for the legal proposals. Next slide, please, Eva. I think Eva already went in a bit more detail through the digital statement, but well, as I already said, if the digital check shows strong digital implications, then we move to a digital statement. This is required for directives, regulations, and decisions, and it's more than just a formality. It explains how a proposal aligns with the European digital principles and strategies. It also identifies the required data flows, the digital tools that could be used or need to be used, and it sets out measures to ensure cross-border interoperability. So rather than considering this digital statement as more work or bureaucratic hassle, we see it as an opportunity now to show how our policy or law will work in the real world digital environment that we are creating. So concretely, the digital statement forces us to ask our policy units and also ourselves which articles in the proposal that we have involve digital processes or data. Does that proposal align with the European data strategy, the one's only principle, and the European common data space objectives? What are the data flows, digital solutions, and public services that are involved or impacted? And finally, have we ensured the interoperability across member states and the sharing of data across member states? So the entire package and all these questions with their answers in this statement, it creates kind of a digital blueprint, a vision for implementation that bridges the legal context and the operational reality, operational digital reality. So it's a very helpful document. I put in some snapshots from an example of a digital statement that we made for the soil monitoring law, the COM 2022-416, I think a while ago. So just to give you an idea of what are the different processes and what we have to document in these different processes for the digital statement. And it's quite a bit. So to close this presentation, this part up from my side, I think DPRM, DRPM, Digital-ready Policymaking is not just a compliance exercise, but it helps really shaping legislation to be digital ready, future proof, and implementation ready. So it's an important process for us. But that's it from our side. Eva, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Yuri. Very interesting. And on the next slide, you can see some, well, it's a bit also of the discussion of the lessons learned, also from support, DRPM support service, the centralized one, and what we hear from, let's say, a local support. That is a big change for the Commission, for colleagues. It requires really changing how we think about implementing digital aspects. It's not only about the systems. It's also, as Yuri said, it's reporting, and sometimes it's not that obvious that this also involves digital aspects. And some DGs, some Directorate-Generals are more advanced, or they have more digital-ready approach within their processes, and this is easier for them to implement, like for a DG environment. But some are still learning this this approach. So really, we have to make aware how important this is, and how it can bring benefits not only for the internal procedures and making policies, but most of all for the citizens impacted by the legislation. What is also a problem, or we saw as an issue during the implementing of this process, is that IT units are often not in collaboration with policy teams. They are included at the very late stage of policy design, when it has to be implemented, not when it is drafted, and that of course causes some problems. So now we really try to make aware how it is important to introduce and include these colleagues earlier. And this also involves change of habits. To include IT in the policymaking process, and also to make aware our IT colleagues that they play a role in the policymaking process as well, and they can really have impact on making the policies easier to implement and smoother. Also, it is very important, and we still try to encourage the teams from different DGs to assemble their own local support teams, so they can provide us first-hand information. And for these local teams, we try to create a network to disseminate directly any updates and news that we have, and also to make our collaboration foster, to share knowledge and exchange. And also we seek feedback from this network, because this is very important for making improvements to the process. And awareness raising is very important in this process as well. So information sessions, so colleagues know what is the obligation, the question, what is actually under the scope, when to do the LFDS or DS or digital check. There are the most common questions. So this is something that we focus on a lot. So this also involves creating promotional materials. We have monthly knowledge hours for colleagues at the Commission on different topics, on different elements of the framework, so they can be updated and they can have this knowledge available. And also to ask questions if something is still not clear. And knowledge sharing, such as guides, documentation, examples, and exchange of good practices is something that, even if we answer a lot of questions, there is still a need for sharing an example, for showing how this actually is implemented, how other DGs are organized, and how, for example, LFDS are then published. I don't know, Yuri, if you want to share something from your side here as well.
No, I think most of the experiences we had so far are included there, but I think it's important that indeed that you start early in the process, as early as possible, and you involve all the stakeholders. That includes, of course, the IT team, the better regulation team, which is guarding the procedures for the legal proposals, and also any digital team. So we have this multidisciplinary multidisciplinary team put together, and that's very helpful because it's kind of a bridge between the policy units and the IT unit, which was missing in the past. And as you rightly said, the IT units get confronted with implementation requirements very late down the road, or they're being supported through contracts and there are systems being developed, and then in the end the business continuity and the maintenance of those systems falls back on the IT units and they have no clue about this. But it's very important to have this multidisciplinary team in place that brings policy, legal and IT together as a kind of a bridge, that everybody has a common understanding of what's in the pipeline and what needs to be done and which kind of responsibilities goes where, including deciding whether a system needs to be developed internally or should be outsourced or should be given to another institution to help us and give us support. And I think that's a very important aspect, starting early, involve the multidisciplinary teams. Well, and then use your examples. You can use that. There are examples at the Digital-ready Policymaking portal of Digit, of course, but it's very important to develop your own examples. And based on those examples, you will create capacity, competence, and understanding in digital-ready policymaking for the field of policy that you're in. I think having done 3 digital statements already together with Digit, that was very helpful to kind of create this kind of competence of how to do this, what to look for. So things are going much faster now, and people in the house, because of these examples, also have a better view on what is expected from them to do the first files. I think that's more or less, it's also the awareness. It's starting early, informing people what is requested, what is expected from them, and how they have to do it. Give some internal training as well. Let them know that you're there, so that they have this natural reflection, calling the right person at the right time when things need to be done. As you said, it's not just about only new things, also initiatives that were in the pipeline. Since 1st of January, you have the obligation to deliver digital statements. So we had a lot of legislation already in the pipeline under the last mandate last year that still got the new obligation to come forward with a digital statement when entering negotiations with Parliament and Council on a legal proposal. So I think just to be aware, it's not just for the completely new things. For this, you get the fishes and the descriptions, and you can start from the very beginning. But it's also for already ongoing files that have since 1st of January have the obligation to do digital statements when they have a positive digital check. So, but I think that's in a nutshell a bit the lessons learned from our side.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.